Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today is the first day of spring break for me, so I know I'm in a very good mood. That's also why it's been a while since I filmed a video. You guys know how it is. Right before any sort of break, it's just a massive influx of posters and presentations and midterms. But I asked you guys a while back to vote on Twitter for which video I would film next, and this one was it. Although I will say the other option was intro to adult books, and I will be filming that. So let's go ahead and get started with some unpopular opinions. So number one is a popular book or series that you didn't like. Now all the other answers, I did try and make things that I haven't necessarily discussed on here before, but this first one I know I've talked about before, but I just couldn't help it, and that is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now I will say this is going to be a mild spoiler if you haven't read this series, although I will say if you have similar taste to books as I do, you probably wouldn't like this series anyway, and a lot of you have probably already read it anyway, but you have these incredibly unique, terrifying images. I remember just being so excited for this series because you guys know how much I love horror, and then I got like a third of the way into it and I was like, holy hell, this is just baby X-Men. So it's essentially a young adult adventure novel, which is fine if you're into that. I'm not. So it was just so frustrating that you had these images and it was marketed as if it was going to be this unique horror novel, which it's not in any way, shape, or form, at least in my opinion. Also, let me know if you feel this way, but the romance in that series, when you really think about it, is pretty revolting. So number two is a popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate but you love. Now this doesn't happen incredibly often. Most of the time if I have a book that I rant and rave about, most of the comments that I get back after people have read it, in general people have enjoyed it, but I remember when I first started off on BookTube, there was a book that I absolutely adored. I raved about it. It was one of my favorite ones of the year. A bunch of other booktubers picked it up and read it, and everybody hated it. And this is the only time that's necessarily happened, and that is The Marbury Lens. Let me know if you guys do remember this sort of happening because it was such a long time ago, but I adore this. It was sort of like a sci-fi horror novel. Incredibly disturbing. I remember literally sweating while reading this because it affected me that much, and then everybody just despised it. So I am sort of curious to go back ahead and reread it to see if it really was as bad as other people said. Maybe I was just in a really good mood when I read it, and maybe it really is that shitty. Let me know if you guys did read this. I know I'm fully aware that it was really fucking strange, but that's also what I kind of liked about it, so I do kind of want to go ahead and go back and reread this. And then an adult novel that I really loved was The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. Now although this was my least favorite Jeffrey Eugenides book, I definitely liked Middlesex and The Virgin Suicides much more. I still liked this, and everyone just thought it was kind of pretentious dribble and crap, but I still really liked it, so let me guys know what you thought about that one as well. Number three says, a love triangle where the main character ended up with a person you did not want them to end up with. Warn people for spoilers, blah blah blah. So I will say for this one, and I think there might be another one like this as well, I don't really have an answer because I don't tend to read books that have love triangles in them anymore. I mean, if we're going back to a book I read a really long time ago, I remember really being much more of a fan of Gale versus Peeta in the Hunger Games series, but again, that's not something I was super or am super invested in. I just kind of steer clear of books with that as a main plot line just because I don't find that very interesting. Next is a popular book genre that you hardly reach for. For this, it would definitely have to be science fiction. The last one I can think I read was probably Ready Player One maybe, and although I did think that was really fun, I don't have any interest in continuing on with the series. So if you guys do have a good sort of starter sci-fi book that's good for people who don't normally read sci-fi, let me know. So next is a popular or beloved character that you did not like. Now this one, like the love triangle question, I had a lot of difficulty. I went through every single book I've read on Goodreads and really tried to think about this, but I don't tend to, I know shipping has to do with two people, but I don't tend to get super obsessive about characters in books. Aside from maybe Joe from You, I just don't get necessarily incredibly invested in characters, so it's difficult for me on the flip side to also have a character that I despise so much that I wish just wasn't in the series at all. So for this one, I'm gonna answer it in the opposite way and say a character that I really loved that everyone seems to despise, and that is definitely Quentin from the Magician series. I understand he's very morose, he fucks up a lot and makes just tons of mistakes, but I adore him as a character. I identify with a lot of his thoughts. I completely understand why so many people dislike that series, but it's easily one of my favorites of all time, and I hold it really dear to my heart. Next is a popular author that you can't seem to get into. Now for this I have two authors, very different. I don't know if you could pick two more different authors, but first is Cassandra Clare, partly because yes, I dislike the Mortal Instruments series. I just don't think the writing was good whatsoever. It's just filled with tropes. I understand it's a fun book if you're into that and it's fun for pleasure, but if that's not a genre you're interested in, there's just not anything you can really take away positively from that series, at least in my opinion. I will apologize if I'm touching my hair a lot. I just showered and it tends to puff up like a chia pet, so I tried to straighten it down, but it's slowly regrowing throughout this video. I also just tend to honestly dislike her as a person, and if you Google information about her, you'll see exactly what I mean. Another author on the complete end of the spectrum is Jane Austen. I've attempted to read Northanger Abbey probably honestly 4 or 5 times because out of all of her books, I feel as if that's the one I would probably be most interested in. I've also tried to read Pride and Prejudice 3 or 4 times. I think with Pride and Prejudice in particular, I've just seen every miniseries and movie version of that book, so it's just difficult for me to get invested in something that I already know every plot detail about, because if you've seen that BBC miniseries version from a while back, basically I'm pretty sure every scene from the book is in that miniseries, so it's just very hard for me to get into. Number 7 is a popular book trope that you're tired of seeing. This would definitely have to be the bookish, quiet, introverted, unique, so different female protagonist. She always also tends to have that female friend who's a little bit more outgoing, who likes to go out, and that female friend is always depicted in kind of a negative light. And when authors tend to do that, I just find it a little sanctimonious and a tad sexist. Number 8 is a popular series that you have no interest in reading. So I have a list for this. So number 1 is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Number 2 is the Gone series by Michael Grant, just no interest. And number 3 is the Percy Jackson series, blanking on who wrote those. And finally, number 9 is, the saying goes, the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation do you prefer more than the book? Orange is the New Black, blanking on the author's name, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Outlander. So those are all books that I've read where I definitely preferred either the movie or the TV series. So that was the Unpopular Opinions book tag. Please let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned here and if you either agree or disagree with me. Also, I'm leaving for Savannah and Charleston tomorrow. I haven't traveled a lot around the southern US. Actually, I did used to live in Alabama, but I was very little then. I'm thinking about doing a travel vlog. I vlogged so much about my travels when I was abroad, and I would like to do that some here, so let me know if you guys would be interested in that and whether you'd like one of those like 3-minute with music in the background type vlogs or a longer one where I'm more talking throughout it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.